Hello again, fellow audiophiles. I am Wave Theory, and I am here to talk to you about the Audeze LCD. Oh, wait a minute. The Audeze MM-500 open back around ear planar magnetic headphone that Audeze is now selling for $1,700 US, and I will link to Audeze's website where you can purchase this headphone in the description down below. So yeah, I wanted to drop a first impressions video of this because this was bought by a friend of the channel and then shipped directly to my house. So I got this unit brand new in the box earlier this week. I've had a few hours to just listen to it on its own here without any break-in, so I will go ahead and drop some first impressions. My plan is to then break this thing in rather aggressively, and then I will do a full review and release that in the weeks to come. I don't know exactly when because I have a ton, and I mean a ton, of cool gear in for review and arriving very soon. So this will drop as when it is appropriate, but know that I have it here. So let's dive into the first impressions. All right, so in typical standard Audeze fare, it comes in this nice hard plastic case like this. Boy, I just knocked on that and it sounded like a door. Thought the dog was gonna bark there for a second. Okay, she didn't. We're back on track. Okay. Anyway, comes in that nice hard side, basically mini suitcase that Audeze headphones come in. So this is now no longer called an Audeze LCD headphone. That's a pretty significant departure because so many you think Audeze, you think LCD headphones, right? The styling of this and the build is very reminiscent of their recent flagship, the LCD-5, though. It has a very LCD-5-like features and aesthetic to it. And I have a review of the LCD-5, and I also have a first impressions video of the LCD-5, and I will link to both down in the description, so you can see how closely related to this is from a build standpoint. A big key difference, though, is that instead of using the acetate resin for the cup housing here and the driver housing, this is a machined aluminum, okay, according to Audeze's website. But other than that, it is very similar to the LCD-5, but because it uses aluminum rather than that acetate resin, it is a little bit heavier. The website specs this at 495 grams of mass, whereas the LCD-5 was 420, I believe. So it is a little bit heavier than the LCD-5, and I brought out here my my old LCD-2 pre-phaser, just to show you like the difference in build. Like this just looks bigger and more substantial than this does. Okay, and so you can still see that while it's still distinctively Audeze in its styling, it is a break from their more traditional LCD aesthetic and build, which just looks big and bulky and feels big and bulky when it's on your head. By the way, this is a ZMF pilot pad on top of the Audeze stock spring steel headband, so that's why it looks that way. Really helps with comfort, okay? It fits. Anyway, if that ever is a thing that you need to worry about. Okay, back to this. We still have the dual 3-pin mini XLR cable entry here, and then we have not like, if you remember the LCD-5 pads, they were like more angled on the inside here. These are a little bit more flat against the side of the head, and they are very soft, even brand new. There's really not a whole lot of stiffness to the pads here, and that is good because the clamp on this thing is holy head in a vice Batman. Like, it really clamps hard. And so I think that's going to take some break-in too, because I have not had an opportunity, because I have so much gear in and just other things going on with the school year restarting and all of that, that I haven't had, you know, several hours long sessions with this thing. But I imagine that this clamp will become a problem after a fair amount of time. But for an hour to two that I have had at a time to listen to this thing, the softness of the pads has tempered that clamp enough that I haven't found it uncomfortable yet. Again, these are first impressions. We'll see what happens when I hopefully get some longer listening sessions in with the full review coming. Okay, So listening impressions, sound impressions having not been fully broken in, because I listed this basically right out of the box using my Forza Noir hybrid cable for LCD, because the stock cable that comes with these is 1/4 inch single-ended only, and I was plugging this into basically all balanced amps for the first impressions. The signature, they are going for a very LCD5-like type of frequency response, which is they're trying to go for dead neutral, but there's a little bit of upper mid forwardness to it. There's a bit more energy around 3 kilohertz, I want to say, that is just more forward than the rest of the spectrum. Now, that was also true of the LCD5. Usually when that happens for me, I will find headphones quite shouty. The LCD5 was shouty at times, certainly, but it did enough other things well with its speed and its resolution and its lower end physicality, like punch, slam, those sorts of things, that I didn't notice the shoutiness as much. Right out of the box, these sounded really aggressively mid-forward and shouty and bass lean and that sort of thing. Like, sounded very similar, very reminiscent to the stock tuning of the LCD-X Closed, which I also have a review for that's been fairly recent, I will link to down below. And if you remember in that review, I did not like the stock tuning of the LCD-XC at all and had to EQ that one. So I checked EQ right away with these, and they take to EQ very well. So you do have that ability to customize the sound that is a trait of Audeze Headphones. Oh, that's not what I meant to say. Audeze headphones, that they do take to EQ and are very customizable in that way. Okay, however, I did let these break in for one night with a pretty aggressive 12-hour-long listening session, or not listening, but break-in session, where I pushed them hard for at least 12 hours. All right, and when I sat down with them after just that one 12-hour-long break-in session, I noticed that in the stock tuning without EQ, that the bass was coming forward a little bit more, and there was definitely more physicality and quickness and punch, slam, the physical, dynamic impact aspects of bass were coming forward more. Not forward in terms of making the bass more prominent relative to other ranges in the frequency spectrum, just they were more noticeable and coming more into line with the mids and the treble and that sort of thing. Now, it's still only up to the level of neutral so far. It is not a bass shelf. I don't think there is going to be a bass shelf here, because that is not the goal Audeze had with this headphone. This is meant as like a professional audio work kind of mixing and mastering headphone, just like their LCD-X series are. Okay. So anyway, even after that 12-hour break-in session, I'm noticing some changes there that are filling out and making it sound like a more complete, well-rounded tuning. It's still a little bit shouty and mid-forward for my liking. So we will see where that goes. I don't know if that's going to balance out or not. The LCD5 mostly got away from that after about 30 hours of break-in to my ear. Never completely vanished. I would understand, because of the difference in price, that this doesn't vanish either, and the shoutiness and the mid-forwardness stays there more so than the LCD5, again, because of the price difference. But we'll see if it's masked enough, or that it chills out enough with full break-in that it doesn't bother me over longer listening periods. We'll see what happens. Audeze's tunings always seem to flirt with that shoutiness and aggressively mid-forward presentation to my ear. So we'll see where that goes. All right, but that I can tell, like the Audeze spatial presentation is here, like that kind of bubble around the head kind of thing. The early indications of the imaging and the separation are going to be that they are quite strong. Again, I need more time with it to get into that, but it seems like those are going to be solid traits. The resolution feeds into that. It does seem like it's going to be a fairly resolving headphone too. So I will come back and address all of these things with, the appropriate level of wave theory, depth, and detail in the full review, but I will leave it right there for my first impressions for now. So I am Wave Theory. These have been my first impressions of the brand new Audeze MM-500 headphone. Enjoy the music.